incredible sight. The sky is full, littered with Housemartins. And it's a rare respite from the wind this evening. No wind, none of our ridiculous summer wind that we've just had for the last 3 months or so. The sky is full of thick, dark clouds, very atmospheric. And what's happened is, on these, well, I'd like to use the word balmy, possibly bad choice, but on these usually balmy late August summer evenings, ant colonies explode and you get tens if not hundreds of thousands of winged ants leaving the nest to try and find and set up new colonies. And these Housemartins are stuffing their faces on juicy fat ants. Incredibly, the ants sort of mate on the wing, and those fortunate will come down to earth and find a space to be able to set up another colony. I think these are possibly yellow meadow ants that these Housemartins are feeding on. They're quite tiny ants. And what was happening a moment ago is great big clouds of Housemartins were swooping onto this big Corsican pine that looms down in the valley in front of the house, and I think possibly the ants were trying to take refuge on the underbelly of the needles. And the Housemartins were just scoffing them, and now they've risen. As the ants have risen up into the atmosphere, the Housemartins have gone up there. Opportunity knocks. It's a wonderful sight. These guys won't be with us for much longer now. You know, they'll be building up their reserves ready for their several 1,000-mile flight back to southern Africa. I hope they've had a good breeding season. I imagine things haven't been easy for them with all the rain we've had. There's a few immature swallows now coming in on the act as well, mixing in with the Housemartins. Sociable birds. I watched a hobby the other day over the pond, came down and nailed a Housemartin. Spectacular things. I've seen them before over the village, climbing and diving down on the flocks of martins and swallows that have been ducking and diving and screaming and squealing. Wonderful sight.
Hello listener, welcome to another splendid edition of the Wiggly Podcast. I've got no idea which number this will be, but this is literally the day of our 3rd anniversary. So I'd like to cheer and whoop. Unfortunately, Heather's not here to cheer and whoop because she's going to have some of her incisors removed, having brought in lots and lots of hops from various farms around and hung them all up. And oh, good, Phil has come to join us. Timely, Phil. Come on, have a sit down. We were wondering where you were.
Switch my phone off.
Yeah, switch your phone off. Now, the other thing I should say is welcome back to Rachel Harries, because Rachel, as the listener will possibly well remember, came and joined us towards the end of last year. At the time, she was doing an MA in Sustainable Development at Homenacy College. She finished her MA now, of course, and she's quite jubilant having done so, and has managed to get a few quid together and employ Rachel for 4 months to do what, Rach?
Anything that comes to mind, actually. But really, I'm looking at the things that Wiggly sell at the moment, how we can improve what we're saying about them, new products that we can find that fit in with what we're trying to do and what we're trying to promote, and generally getting stuck in cutting sunflowers. I was out cutting sunflowers in the rain the other day.
Right.
And I think this a little bit later I'm going to meet a hop farmer. So lots and lots of interesting, diverse things.
Okay, fantastic.
And it's great to be back.
So you're here to pester us, to essentially give us a hard time about things that we've chosen that perhaps we shouldn't have chosen, that feature in the catalogue, that are featuring in a way that perhaps they shouldn't feature.
Yes, that is within my remit, so look out.
Sort us suppliers out, I expect. That's the secret agenda there.
You do need sorting out, Phil, don't you? In a big way.
I'm not easily sorted.
No, you're not. You're not easily sorted. I wouldn't know where to start. I think Heather's got it fairly well sussed, but she's had a few more years on me, and she has slightly different influences as well, given her position. So how's things, Phil, anyway?
Pretty potentially poor.
Yeah.
Well, here we are. What date is it today? The 11th of September. So normally we would finish our harvest easily by now, In terms of area, we haven't cut half the area yet.
Right.
The crops that are out are deteriorating now because a lot of them are trying to grow. That's what they want to do.
Yeah.
And of course, as seed producers, if they germinate in the field, that is a little early for their potential customers. Hopefully, if we do get a chance to harvest them, we will get, the feed value or some feed value so that it shouldn't be a total loss. But one of our biggest problems is the ground conditions. We didn't get stuck, but the potential is there to get stuck, and of course if you get stuck when it's this wet, it is extremely hard to get large machinery unstuck.
Yeah.
I was interested, good old DEFRA, they are my favourite people, but one of the...
Any chance to have a dig?
Well, this one I think is a really good example. So we have this thing, they love...
all good examples.
They love jargon, and they have this thing called cross-compliance, which is a set of rules that we have to abide by to essentially qualify for our subsidy payment.
Yeah.
And these rules are as diverse as not trimming your hedges before the end of July and greasing your trailer up regularly, all this sort of stuff. But one of the rules of cross-compliance is the care of your soil, that you're not allowed to take heavy machinery onto the soil when it's waterlogged, so that you damage it or rut it. So obviously this harvest has thrown up a huge issue on that, because what option has anyone got?
Yeah.
So they've had to give us a derogation to say that, of course, because it's raining, you can go onto your waterlogged soil and harvest your crops anyway. So what was the point of the rule in the first place?
Yeah.
I'm not complaining, but I think, frankly, any inspector who came and told a farmer this year that his field was too wet to harvest might not have appreciated the response he got. But I just think that
I think you would more than appreciate the response.
While the bureaucrats are busying themselves with such crucial things as telling us that we can't drive on waterlogged soils and then giving us a derogation when they are waterlogged, I just think that's a great use of public money.
Good. Okay. So that's definitely putting their place again.
But from our practical point of view, there are people a lot worse off than we are, which I always find a comfort. I always think that until you are, you actually can't find someone who's worse off than you, then life is not too bad.
It is a difficult one. I mean, I must admit, I'm a bit of a sunshine boy, and I'm finding it very difficult. All this greyness, this dark, this kind of wetness, and even to the extent where I'm thinking about selling the house and going backpacking to Southern Hemisphere, because I've just had a guts full of it. So even though you try and maintain some sort of enthusiasm, and as you say, try and think, well, there are worse people there are other people that are worse off than you. It's because it's been so long. Now, this weather has just daunted me for so long. It's so difficult to make.
Well, Hev was saying that she reckons she's suffering from, is it SAD?
Yeah, seasonal adjustment disorder in when August, September or something. Yeah.
And it is right. Somebody else, I think it was you, Rachel, came swanning back from some holiday somewhere with a nice tan and commented that the rest of us look completely pallid.
Yeah.
Month in the south of France.
Which is
not
really
bad.
Quite appalling, given that we're supposed to be outdoor folk and we're supposed to have been outdoors since June.
Yeah.
And I think the only day we reckoned that any of us could have scored any sunburn at all was the Wiggly Open Day back in July.
Yeah.
And that was the only day we reckoned that it was hot enough.
That was possibly the nicest day of the year.
The only nice day of the year.
the nice day of the year, yeah. All right, well, to be on a slightly more positive, upbeat mode for the next few minutes, I went over to Telford to see a contributor in many ways, Mark Ecclestone, who's a source of inspiration, to look at what Mark had achieved on his green space just in front of his house. The development work that we talked about previously, I think the last time Mark would have featured on the podcast was probably March earlier on this year, has come to an end because of the credit crunch. There's very little development going on. But Mark's been industrious with his community to create a wonderful space in front of his house, and it was a real eye-opener to see what a group of enthusiastic volunteers had managed to achieve in a relatively short space of time. So let's have a listen to what Mark's got to say.
Right, I'm back with our Mark Ecclestone, who many listeners will already be familiar with from his photography fame and various podcast cameos in the past. And I brought you some nice plants, Mark.
Thank you very much. Well, I like your garden down at Wiggly's.
Well, you've got some specimens now because Hannah chopped a few in half because the garden at Wiggly's is kind of outgrowing itself a little bit. So Hannah split some corms and whatnot.
Oh, great
so you've got some choice species there. How are you getting on anyway? I came down here when March.
Yeah,
it seems a long time ago, isn't it?
6 months now, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
it is. Yeah.
It's good to see. Yeah, well, you can see what's changed, sort of thing. So
it's changed dramatically.
This is like the wildflower area. A lot of people don't quite get this. They think it's a little bit tatty sort of thing, but it is actually packed full of insects. So there's that many types of bees, flies, hoverflies. You can get the dragonflies coming here, and it's just all sorts of things
in
here.
Mix,
but
I quite like it.
It's one of my favourite bits, sort of thing. And I quite often spend a lot of time here doing photography because there's that much rather than the plants, and it's just like right in front of the house. It saves going somewhere. But
fantastic. Well, we should put. Perhaps we should talk about the. There's a little bit of background noise. We should put this place into context, shouldn't we? Really, we're sort of stood in a green space that's essentially going to be smack bang in the middle of a massive new development just outside of Telford.
It's supposed to be the biggest village development in this country. Is about to be 3,000 new houses being built here.
And the word village is used
quite loosely, I would imagine.
That's right. Yeah.
But for the last sort of 2 years, bursts have been putting in the roads and all the sort of infrastructure.
Right.
Some of the houses are being built, but obviously with all things that are happening, they're slowed right down with them. But this noise has just been going on. It's got another 6 months of it yet.
You're used to it now. I mean,
it drives you mad though. Like working shifts or something.
Fantastic. So of course this green space here then, because in many respects, because it's where it's situated, smack bang in essentially a built environment, it's very useful, isn't it? It's highly valuable for a range of species. Which, I mean, I'm looking down at this Gelder Rose here. I mean, the berries are stunning on this plant, and there's a wonderful hoverfly. I mean, look at the colours in that.
It's cracker, isn't it?
Have you taken any photographs of one like that?
I have, yeah. This year I've noticed that the berries are really doing well. This particular one, which what was it, Gelder Rose?
Yes.
And we got all the mountain ash. They've got full of berries this year, and
you have.
And already the birds have started pecking at them. And you got all the what's the berry that you make the wine out of?
Elderberry.
Yeah, it's tons of that, and you can see where the blackbirds are, because when they eat it, you get purple poo everywhere, don't you? You can see all that starting.
Purple poo all over your car.
That's it. Yeah.
People often associate elderberry, elderflower and whatnot as being a sign of neglect in a garden, but of course the reality is, it's such an important wildlife plant.
Oh, well, I mean, you see all the insects on the flowers in the spring and sort of early summertime, and now it's got the fruit, which is obviously food for the birds. I mean, it's the whole package, really, isn't it?
It is wonderful. So as we go through here, and we've got various bits of some nice fleabane, mix of pines and whatnot. Oh, I can see some greater knapweed.
Yeah, so fleabane is sneezewort.
St John's wort.
These are all plants that have come from Rob.
Okay, from the Rob start. Yes,
they've come from they're all local Shropshire sourced wildflowers. So it's
wonderful. Yeah, so it's all in keeping as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how did it all get here, though? I mean, what was the premise for this, really? I mean, this is the effort of the community, isn't it?
Very much so, yeah. I mean, this particular bed we just walked through, that's been there. I've looked after that for about 6 years or so. And come last year, I thought that it would be a good idea to put a path through so everyone can sort of appreciate what's there, and that was sort of like the starting thing.
Yeah.
And when all this work started here, I thought, well, it's about time that we've got a big green space here. It's sort of essentially just trees and grass, and we need to sort of take ownership of it. So I approached Steve, you can see over there with his kids.
Yeah.
He's a coordinator for the Neighbourhood Watch.
Right.
So I approached him, asked him could he send out a mass email to all the people on the estate, let me know what the idea was, and from that we've had loads of people helping, and it's really brought the community together in a quite an unexpected way, really.
Fantastic. Well, should we go down and meet these guys? I know the last time I was here, the local nursery came out and all the children were helping to plant trees, bits and pieces.
From Puddle Ducks, we're on the last tree.
That's right.
So you've got Steve and his two kids.
Hello, guys. I think we met before, haven't we?
Yeah, Richie, we haven't.
Yeah. So what has he got you doing today?
Babysitting.
Okay. What are you two young ladies up to?
We got some welly boots on.
You got some welly boots on. Are you planning to do some work with your wellies? Not really. A child after my own heart. Fantastic.
Well, these are two of the original ones who helped us when we put the flowers in the orchard.
Right.
So
Okay, I remember. Yeah, I met you fellas when I came down to stand over the apple trees that you planted.
You did. Lovely apple that one. Yeah.
Are there any fruit? I suppose we could
There is.
wander over and have a look
There's
in
some
a minute,
fruit on
but,
there. We've got an apple that is about ready to eat. I took a knife and a plate down so we can sample one fresh from the tree in a bit when we get down there.
Yeah, wonderful.
As a bit of a symbolic moment, sort of thing. Isn't it?
So your enthusiasm hasn't waned at all. You're still into it, you know.
It's still there.
How much time do you spend down here? Do you think every week?
A few hours maybe.
Okay, and that's all it takes really then to keep it in this pristine state that I find it in now.
It is, as long as you have somebody like Mark.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so Mark does most of it, and we just wander up, look pretty, which I am.
Absolutely.
No, it's fine that once we got the big hard work out of the way, just a bit of tinkering around, just hoeing, mowing, weeding, that sort of thing. And
Now, who's responsible for mowing this? Because we've got these. We're stood at the moment in a sort of semicircle. It's almost like a sort of a Druidian meeting place, and a huge.
That's our sacrificial log in the middle there.
Yeah, that's right. And
TWS actually do the contractors for the council. They actually cut the grass.
okay,
That's what they do, sort of thing, and then everything else is down to us.
wonderful.
And they come on once a month and do that.
And then some of these trees, I mean, it's amazing how things mature. You've got some cherries and some field maples and some ash and bits and pieces like that. And like you say, your rowans are filling out quite nicely now with berries. I bet the birds are stuffing their faces.
Well, you can see them starting. So you can see them on there, and then on these rocks, they come and they pull the berries off and come sit on here and eat them. In various places, you're finding all the different coloured poos off them.
Wonderful. And who's responsible for that beautiful floral display down there? There's a mix of all sorts of kind of. They're cottage garden plants, aren't they?
We're calling that our sort of cottage garden bed.
Right. Okay.
It's just sort of developed into that. Really, it wasn't done that in that way on purpose, but it's just that's how it's turned out, and that's a lot of the original plants that we got from yourselves were in there.
Yeah.
Then what's happened with people who've been splitting the garden plants, had nowhere to put them. They've come down and given us them, and it sort of turned into this sort of thing. B&Q gave us £100 for plants and what we've added in there.
Yeah. It's brilliant. I mean, this is a shining example of what's achievable when a group of people that have some enthusiasm but want to share some effort, get together, and it just shows what can be achieved.
Well, everything you see here has been achieved with £200.
Right.
Everything else we've sort of begged, stealed and borrowed. Yeah. It's and you find that people are, once they realise what we're doing, they're sort of only too willing to actually get in there and help us, sort of thing.
Fantastic.
I mean, obviously, all these rocks, these are all given to us by burst.
You didn't move those by hand.
No.
Shall we have a walk up and see these apple trees? I'm really interested in feasting on one of these apples. I've just wandered past some wonderful poplar seating, which is kind of living seating, because some of it I've noticed is sprouting, so chances are it'll root as well in the ground. So that's a wonderful thing to do. You don't have to worry about your seating rotting or disappearing or anything.
That was another good thing. The TWS, these are logs from round in Telford somewhere, and they had them lying in their depot. And I asked them could we have some, and they brought 5 of these great big logs down, chainsawed the tops off for us, and we got seating all around the area now, which is again is no cost at all. So
brilliant. So we come up now. The apple trees. I'm pleased to say that Wiggly's having donated these apple trees. They're all still alive.
That's it. As well, yeah.
And
the whole area
got fruit on them as well, even on this first year.
Everything is taken really well here. I think they're a little bit too close because we're expecting to lose a couple, but
I think the rootstock in these is such that they're never going to get massive anyway. They'll only ever get to sort of 12 feet, possibly.
I suppose we know what sort of size can support apples, so we know that they won't need to be much bigger than that.
No, they won't. These trees won't get massive. You haven't tried any of these apples yet?
No, we've got one lined up for us all to try. So it's like a bit of a moment here, isn't it?
So we need a Sleeping Beauty to test it.
That's right. Sleeping Beauty. Well, I've never got a Sleeping Beauty before, so that's an interesting one. What do you think of these guys? Are you looking forward to trying these apples? Do you like apples? Yeah. Mark's sawing away with this ever so blunt knife. There we go.
Let's try one of these. There you go. You can be the first one.
Well, I think that's one of these young ladies should try it stuck on a piece first. There you go. Try that. See what it's like. Tell me if it's sweet.
There you go, Steve. There's a bit for you there.
What's the verdict then, guys?
Dave.
Nice.
Too shy to chew on there. Do they know something that we don't?
It's a fair old size one.
This is great. Well, this is the first bit of fruit I've eaten from a wiggly tree.
Oh, there you go, eh?
So there you are.
That's quite a moment, isn't it?
Yeah. It is, yeah.
So there's only four more portions to go then.
I see.
This bug tower that I'm looking at now is absolutely stunning. It's such a simple thing, just a bunch of pallets stuck on top of one another with some bricks and some hay and straw and logs and rolled up corrugated cardboard and roofing tiles, and on the top the pièce de résistance is a square planter loosely nailed together. We're using some old scrap wood, and it's inundated with cosmos, and consequently I'm watching little tiny worker bumblebees feasting away on the pollen. These are obviously providing at the moment. This looks great, doesn't it?
It just surpassed our expectations. The roofs work really well. You've got different flowers, different times, and at the minute it's just this massive cosmos, and there's loads of bees on here, isn't there? So
it's really nice. A few hoverflies and droneflies and all sorts of things. I mean, this is obviously a feeding station for
little
them,
nectar
really.
bar, isn't it? Sort
yeah,
of thing.
It is. And really, this is something that's very easy to make, and will probably.
This took a couple of hours to make, and it cost £5.
Right.
And that was just a bit.
So I was going to say, what did you actually spend £5 on?
That was just things like straw and the turf sort of thing.
Okay.
But I'm sure if I sort of worked a bit harder, you'd probably be able to get them for nothing sort of thing. But say for £5, it's a real sort of focal point at the end of the orchard, and it's done its job really well. I think
it's really smart. So what's the plan here then for the future? Now you've got you're talking about making wonderful arches, training your wild dog roses, and creating a new wildflower pasture here. Possibly building dry stone walls and things like that. I mean, is there sufficient enthusiasm with you guys to be able to maintain that?
Yeah. We just put a new hedge in front of the cottage garden bit. Granville, who supplies you with your besoms,
right?
He's got a wood in Stafford, and these are all stuff from his wood. So we got that off him. We'll hopefully get some more stuff, and we can in the meadow bit here, which at the minute is just a grass field, but that's our plans for next year, is to turn this into a meadow with the wildflowers that we got here.
Right.
Split them and put them in there, and create another hurdle type entrance with an arch. So it brings you into this bit.
Absolutely. So lots of stuff to do, and of course other agencies. You mentioned the Wildlife Trust you want to get involved.
Yeah, that Pete Lambert from the local Wildlife Trust is coming down in a month's time, and he's going to create for us like a tunnel through the woodland that goes around the edge of the green space. He's going to create a tunnel that goes in there, works its way along, comes out down there, so the kids can walk through. Maybe like signs in there, say, because look for this and look for that. This is the type of tree. They're going to put next boxes up for pied flycatchers, because behind us we've got the Wrekin, and there's some there.
Okay.
Then just over the way.
What is a Wrekin then? What is it exactly?
The Wrekin is a great big wooded area.
Right.
But the Wrekin itself is a local landmark.
Okay.
There's all sorts of stories about giants and all that sort of stuff associated with it. But it's like the main landmark for the sort of Telford area, like.
Fantastic. So, I mean, I've got to say, I've got to congratulate you fellas on what you've managed to achieve here, because there is a certain amount of nurturing involved. I can appreciate the extent to which you've taken the time out to make a real difference to a green space. Not only something that you've created to accommodate, like you mentioned, your village fete, a nice community gathering where you had some music and picnics and things like that, but also a place to accommodate wildlife. So I think you've got the balance spot on. Well, I look forward to coming back next year and seeing the changes.
In about a year's time.
And another apple, perhaps.
Yeah, indeed. I look forward to it. Cheers.
Well, thanks for that, Mark. Sounds like you had a great day out there, Richard.
I did.
Makes a change there then. It's having a day out.
I've not had many days out recently, I've got to say, Phil. Thank you for that. Rach, what are you up to now anyway? What have you got planned for the rest of the day?
Well, for the rest of the day, in a little while, just after this, I'm off with Heather to go and visit this hop farmer, because Heather and San have spent the past couple of days coming back to Blakemere Farm with trailer loads of hops that they've had cut so that we can sell them.
Right.
So I'm not quite sure, but there's various ideas going around with what we're going to do them. I think we're going to sell them so that people can hang them up in their homes. They look lovely.
Yeah. They do look lovely. I mean, hops are there's definitely a certain scent about a hop, but I think it's a gorgeous scent.
But you know why there's that scent? I looked this up this morning, that they're the same family as cannabis.
Really?
Or the hemp family. And so when they came in the office, I was thinking, what's that smell?
That's an interesting one. Is that right? Well, there you are. Folks will get the chance to buy these vines, hop vines.
And they can hang them up in their homes just like we have in Herefordshire pubs all over the place.
Yeah. They last a long time as well, won't they, I think?
Yeah, ages.
A couple of years, you can hang your hop vine up and it'll be there. And there's a nice feature as well in the room.
But they're not vines. They're actually bines, Richard.
Bines, right, okay.
Yes.
Right, bines, I stand corrected.
Because they've got little hairs that help them to climb rather than vines that have suckers.
Yes, I can see you've been on Wikipedia this morning.
Amazing what you can learn.
Oh, absolutely.
But I've checked the references. Yeah. I've checked my references on it.
They're very abrasive. When you handle them, they'll they don't sting you, but they certainly irritate the skin, and that's what those little hairs are. But that's how they hang on, and they're very abrasive things.
Yeah.
Heather's got scratches all over her arms from them.
I mean, they've been shifting them in and out and up and down and around the houses because we have to hang them up so they dry or start to dry, and then when you put them up in your house, as they dry more, and gradually they'll go from, they're green now, they'll go through all the shades to brown, and they'll last 12 months. Nothing goes wrong with them. After 12 months they won't smell much. But
did you ever used to work in the hops when you were a kid?
No.
My
father did.
Thing. Yeah, it was a great. It used to be quite lucrative, in summer holidays before college. Just at that end, it was the end of the summer holidays. Really, you get a chance to have a couple of weeks on the hops. And there was some beer money, probably enough, made doing the hops.
They have said that over at Edward Lewis's, where these hops have come from, at the Haven, which is quite a famous farm in Herefordshire. They've got a very famous pedigree Hereford cattle herd, and they're traditional outfit, long-standing farm. But she said it is absolutely manic over there, with hops going in all directions. And of course, you put the hop vine into a hop picking machine, which is a static machine back at the farm, and it strips all the hops off, which are these little sort of bushy, I don't know how you describe them.
Flowers, aren't they?
They're the flowers, but they look like a sort of elongated, expanded Brussels sprout, I suppose, something like that.
Yeah.
They're quite soft, and you extract those from the bine, chuck the bine away, and then you lay these hops out in trays in the kiln. But of course, a hop kiln is a very close thing to a bonfire, because you have a big flame in the bottom providing the heat, and then you have the hops on the drying floors, and the heat comes up through the hops, and then at the top you have the peaked roof with these funny cowls that you've seen with like a wind vane on the end of it, so that they always face away from the wind, so the wind will draw the air out of the top of them. But of course, the combination of big oily fire, effectively, tinder dry hops, which are very burnable, and it is sort of traditional that hop kilns get burnt fairly regularly.
I always wondered why they were called kilns. I never knew there was a fire inside. That's why, isn't it?
The other thing that's interesting...
a tidbit they've missed out on Wikipedia then.
The other thing that's interesting is that hop yards traditionally are on heavy clay soil, and with the demise of hops, that's brought these fields into arable cropping. And we've had a couple of farms where there's been a field called the hop yard or similar, and it's always the heaviest field. And you could plant your hop yard, and I don't actually know how long a hop will last. It'll last quite a long time.
15 years, according to Wikipedia.
As long as it doesn't get wilt. But it means that you don't have to cultivate that difficult soil very often, and strong ground, good crop. But of course, verticulum wilt, which is the famous disease that hops get, has thinned them out considerably. And it has reduced them to trying to grow resistant varieties. And there's been quite a lot of work growing dwarf varieties, which don't require all the wire work that you see to make a hop yard, which considerably eases the cost of doing it. But of course, these hops are from a traditional, grown on a wire trellis with strings down to the ground, and so you've got all these traditional jobs. You've got stringing, you've got tying the hops, you have to go along twisting them to make sure they climb the strings, and then when you harvest them, you cut the string and the bine off at the ground and off up in the air, so somebody's up in the air cutting them off, and the whole thing, which is what we've got, then goes back to the hop picker in a little trailer. Hundreds of these trailers, all going in all directions, absolute chaos. And before hop picking machines, it was traditional for the folk from the cities, and round here it would have been miners' families, would come up from South Wales and they pick hops by hand. And so they'd be in the field, pick the flowers off into the field, into these big Hessian hop pockets, and take them back to the farm to dry. For years, that was a traditional summer activity, and if you talk to some of the miners' families now, they can remember their grandparents sending them as kids into the hop yards in Herefordshire.
Fantastic.
No more, I'm afraid.
Who needs Wikipedia?
Well, we're not going to end on that note. Let's have a quick blast from young Monty.
Montycast, a weekly fact on wiggliness. Baby bats are called pups and are born without fur. Another Montycast, a weekly fact on wiggliness. Next week.
Thanks, Monty. Superb. Right, Phil, we're not going to end on a negative note. This morning, Mike and I were having this conversation earlier on as I drove into work, and I was listening to some upbeat farmers' comments that all is not doom and gloom across the whole sector.
Well, of course, one of the advantages of plenty of water through the summer is that there's plenty of grass. So for those of us with grazing animals, they've been doing very nicely, thank you, over the summer, and as long as they're on fields that don't poach too badly, the grass has grown and they've put on weight in the prescribed fashion. And so that is a positive.
It is, and my mate Richard, of all things, Ovine, and I saw him on Sunday as he drove past, and I said, "How are you getting on, Rich?" He said, "Brilliant, it's great, I love all this rain." and it's because he's got fantastic, lots and lots of lovely lush green grass to fatten his lambs on. And the other element of farming was vegetable production. Apparently it's been a brilliant year for vegetables, so consequently the cost of vegetables in supermarkets shouldn't go up.
Well, of course, any system that's based on handwork is likely to get on better because you're not faced with trying to get machinery onto the field, so that if you're picking veg essentially by hand, that's the sort of system that's going to work. And you obviously haven't had to irrigate it, and I would guess that it's gone very well and there's been a nice consistent supply throughout the summer.
Fantastic. Okay, and just before we go, I should mention the do that Terry and I are having on the 10th of October. Any listeners who would like to come along to Preston-on-Wye Village Hall for a decidedly entertaining evening with Terry and I talking about all sorts of things, allotment, natural gardening, self-sufficiency, and hosting some great debate, should make their way across, and we look forward to seeing you on the 10th. If you want tickets, which are advisable to buy in advance, then you should give us a ring here at Wiggly's and we can pop you a ticket in the post. They're £10. That includes supper, so if any of you travel any distances, you get a chance to drink lots of hideous tasting mulled cider, but some very tasty local treats.
For those of you who may like to indulge in more mulled cider, I think we have got a range of bed and breakfast possibilities that we can put you in touch with as well for those who might care to come from further afield.
Thank you, Phil. Well, I think that's it. I've got to say bye-bye from me.
Bye from me.
And goodbye from me.